Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Connections airing on OROMIA11. Today I am talking to the Safe Harbor Specialist at Esperanza United about ending gender-based violence and the amazing work that they are doing across the Twin Cities. And they just happen to be right here in our very own backyard. This is going to be a good episode that you won't want to miss. Good morning, Estefany. I'm so excited to have you joining me on this episode of Community Connections. Can you introduce yourself and the organization that you are here representing today?
Yes, good morning. My name is Estefany Lazaro. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I've been with Esperanza United, formerly Casa de Esperanza, for almost about 8 years. I started my internship at Esperanza United and have transitioned since then over the years. I am now the Safe Harbor Specialist and Family Advocate. So I work with two of our departments, our prevention team and the intervention team. I provide direct services to youth who are under the age of 24 that may have been survivors of sexual exploitation, labor trafficking, or maybe at high risk. I assist youth with filling orders for protections, restraining orders, attend court, go over the process of any legal system, make sure that if they are in need of referrals, to be connected with attorneys, or any for mental health or therapists or medical. I assist in referring them. I also provide support to our youth coordinator at different schools where we facilitate youth groups. We also do, we use a curriculum for these different youth groups, and we have different presentations at the schools and in the community regarding healthy relationships, human trafficking, and healthy masculinity. And I also do once a week, we call them drop-in advocacy hours at one of the schools in the Twin Cities. To just check in with students, connect with the students, let them know of our resources available. And usually the referrals may come through a teacher or a school counselor that might be working with the student.
Now, for those that may be unfamiliar with the work of Esperanza United, can you kind of talk to us, and I'm sure you kind of just shared a bit about it in your introduction, but can you kind of talk about the work and kind of the genesis of Esperanza United?
Sure. Yes. So Esperanza United, again, from the Casa Esperanza, was started by a small group of activist Latinas back in 1982. They started as a shelter to support Latinas afflicted by violence in Minnesota. So at that time, the shelter was open because women didn't have a place safe to go. So with the support of other mainstream organizations, they were able to provide support to Latina survivors. What they learned and shared was that what Latinas shared was that they didn't feel they were getting the support they needed at that time. Mm-hmm. So at the beginning, Esperanza United used more of a mainstream model, and not a lot of Latinas were actually going to the shelter. So after a strategic plan and following a different model, they were able to provide support to Latinas, and through listening sessions, they learned that Latinas wanted a Latina organization, not just a DV shelter. The community asked the presence of the organization out in the community and for it to be accessible. Esperanza United then became a Latina organization and not just a domestic violence shelter. Also, in addition, Esperanza United does have a bilingual crisis line that was established in 1993. So Esperanza United is now a national organization that provides technical assistance and training to other organizations nationally. We also have our prevention and intervention team that provides support and services locally here in Minnesota. So we continue to work collaboratively also with other Latino organizations and other organizations and shelters.
Now, the work of Esperanza United is focused on ending gender-based violence. Can you elaborate just a little bit about what that looks like for those that may not know?
Yeah, so holistically, we wouldn't be able to do the work without both teams. So in order to do our prevention work, we work closely with the intervention team. So both departments do work closely together throughout the listening sessions that have been held since 1998. They have been useful to evaluate and inform like the development of the work, but also it has led the work of the organization and its framework through the formal and informal listening sessions with the community members. And these community members might have not been necessarily experiencing DV, but could also been participants at our local shelter or in the community, or even youth who attended presentations, disclosed and shared how some of the gender roles that have created inequality and youth during our presentations have helped. The youth at our presentations have helped them be able to identify disparities in their households. So one of the things that we do is we put the community at the center of the work and let them guide us. Historically, this is how the organization has done its work. So one of the things we do is we put the community at the center of the work and let them guide us. Historically, that is how the organization has done the work. We have learned from them and what the needs of our community were at that time and continue to learn from them on what the needs are now.
Can you talk to me a little bit about ways to identify domestic violence? I know there are some specific ways, but I know also that there are times when people find themselves in situations and we're questioning, is this abuse? Is this, is this a safe, a healthy situation? Is this not? What are some of the ways we can assess that?
So there are the different forms of abuse that we have throughout the conversations with our participants that are either staying at our local shelter in the community and during our presentations with youth. We talk about the different forms of abuse. It can be physical, it can look like punching, hitting, slapping. I work directly with youth, so some of the things I have recently seen is a lot of pinching, kicking, not leaving visible bruises. There's also the financial abuse for anyone. Sometimes participants are not able to identify that it's abuse because it's not physical. So just kind of having that conversation that it doesn't need to be physical for it to be abuse. And we talk about the different forms, which again is the physical, the financial, where they might not have access to their income, or their partner might take away their income. Or for newcomers that might be afraid because of their status, and maybe family member might be providing the employment, but also providing housing, so not giving them that, not having them reducing or deducting payments from their paycheck. There's also the verbal, again, that can impact emotionally and psychologically. And this can look like intimidation, isolation, name calling, and threats, reporting them to ICE for our immigrant community. We also have, there's also the sexual abuse, right? Again, some of the things that I've seen recently with youth is, how a lot of our newcomer youth, have normalized that age gap of dating and been seeing a lot of minor youth from the age of 14 who are dating older men who are over the age of 21. So having these conversations during my drop-in advocacy hours or even presentations and just in general, talking about the consent, the laws here in Minnesota, and also explaining what child protection is. So many parents might be afraid to report anything because of fear of not just deportation, but getting their kids taken away. So explaining what that process looks like, providing ongoing support for them and their families. Also with the newer generations, the abuse not is only in person, right? But it can also be, it's happening online. So it can look different for everyone, but very common apps have been like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and it can be like constant messages from a partner wanting to know their whereabouts, wanting to turn on their location. So talking about the safety and when they're sharing their location and when to turn them off. So we do have these conversations as well, like over the phone when we accept residents at our shelter, to turn off their location because sometimes their partner might have their location off. So for safety purposes and confidentiality, we walk them through and create a safety plan with each person.
I think that's so important because there are so many hours in the day, right, where scholars are away from their parents and or guardians. They're at school. And so we don't know. We trust that they're safe and that good things are happening, but we don't know always what's going on. And I think because we live in such a digital age, we miss out on so much on what are going on with our youth because we're not always able to be vigilant about what's going on in the phones. So to hear you say social media, Snapchat, Instagram, things like turning on your location are ways that people are being controlled or abused. It seems so foreign, right? Because I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my latter 30s and I remember before the internet. And so it's like, it almost seems like a foreign concept to consider that these are ways that some of our youth and our young adults are being exposed to violence.
Correct. And then also in addition, the online video gaming and apps that also like DoorDash or just meeting people online through the different dating apps and asking like their location and sharing that. So it's just really important. Again, we continue to learn and have learned a lot of this through our youth, through our participants out in the community of what we've been seeing.
I was recently looking at the website and I love that you guys have a portal on there specifically for youth to give them some resources. And I heard you talking about some of the programming and things that you guys have available for them, youth groups and coming to the schools and starting these conversations early. What do you say to parents that may feel like it's a little too early to start talking about different forms of abuse?
So we actually recently, let me start off again. Sorry. So we offer different leadership opportunities, and we also we partner up with different organizations as well, not just school, but we start having these conversations through activities throughout the year while having these conversations. So we try to make the experience fun and inclusive as well. We let them know before, we also let them know if the group sessions or presentations are going to be held like in Spanish or in English and what it's going to be about. And sometimes this is when the disclosure of any forms of abuse may happen. It could be during groups or during our camps. Like I mentioned before, we work collaboratively with other programs like Girl Scouts. So during our camps where the girls throughout the day might have activities like horseback riding, canoeing. It's just connecting with them and learning about them, the realities, and talking about what does a healthy and unhealthy relationship might look like. So this can take, again, in a formal way or informal way, or also through our 24-hour bilingual crisis line where they might just have questions and might be needing resources.
Can you talk to me just?
Yeah, so the program actually started small back then. The presentations were for youth and leaders in the community to be able to, 2012, throughout the listening sessions, where girls started asking why the boys weren't being included in these spaces and asked for them to be included, because it is important for them to be part of this conversation. So it was in 2014 where boys were invited for the first time to our youth conference, which again is led by our youth. We have a youth committee. We actually have one coming up February 24th, and youth or their parents may register with the QR code that's on our Facebook group. We will be having different presenters, and we'll be providing lunch. They'll be able to get a tour it'll be held at McAllister College, so they will also be getting a tour of the college and have the opportunity to win prizes at the end. And so this is just kind of one of the examples on how we start having these conversations and engaging and including youth. As I mentioned earlier before, we do have, work collaboratively with other organizations and have partners, such like Girl Scouts, the Dakota parks here in Minnesota, where we do different activities throughout the year, and start having these conversations with youth and their parents. And maybe they might not disclose anything at that time, but we will have maybe a youth follow-up after the group or at the end of the day or during our camp, while they're doing activities like canoeing, horseback riding, rock climbing. So we start talking about like what does a healthy relationship might look like, and we're not just talking about teen dating violence but also friendships and relationships with their parents and their peers. So this kind of gets the conversation. We also just recently received our starter kits, where it has questions on how would a youth respond to certain situations and how do they see themselves. It's different questions non-related to domestic violence, but it kind of starts the conversation going.
I think that is wonderful because there's never a bad time to start learning what healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships look like, and giving kids, I think, that exposure early before they get to college, where there's a lot more independence and I think even a lot less supervision would provide them good parameters to kind of keep an eye out for things, but also to help one another. So I think that's wonderful to hear that those type of conversations are taking place. Hopefully participants will sign up using the QR code on you guys' social media page so that they can join you guys at McAllister. Now, Esperanza United uses a multi-pronged approach to support families. Everything from prevention and social change, training and technical assistance, research and evaluation, and public policy. Can you talk to me just about how all of those kind of domino one into the other to create the wonderful organization that is Esperanza United?
Sure. So with our family advocacy team, we do have we do have advocates out in the community. We also have the in-house advocates at our local shelter that provide support. We learned that not all participants need the shelter space, right? They might just want to do like in order for protection, or they might need more ongoing support, because being in a unhealthy relationship where the other person used abuse, they might not be aware of the resources, and language might be a barrier, transportation might be a barrier. So we do work a little differently than other organizations where our advocates do provide transportation, making sure that the participants are getting to court, attending any necessary appointments, for them to be able to, if they are at the shelter, transition out of the shelter, if they are already in the community, make sure that they are at have safe housing, have established employment. Some of them might not have had a job in a very long time. So working on connecting them with the necessary tools for them to be able to, when they are ready, take those steps that they need to make or want to make, after they decide how they want to move forward. So again, as I mentioned, we do have, advocates. We do have 3 shifts at our local shelters. We have an advocate during the day, afternoon, and the overnight. So an advocate is always available, answering the crisis line, being available for the residents. We do not at our shelter, we do not have like a schedule for families to have dinner or breakfast. I know some other shelters go on a time. We actually allow, they are allowed to cook their own meals. We have a pantry where they are able to request and make a list of any culture specific like ingredients or spices, so they can feel like they are at home. At the end of the day, it is their home. We're there to support them. So making it the most comfortable for them and transition after everything that they've been going through. And again, the community advocates do meet the participant where they're at. This can look like in a public place, doing home visits, as long as it's safe for the advocate and for the participant. So they have strategically been able to also place advocates in different locations. So we have an advocate who is full-time at DAS, that's the Domestic Abuse Center in Hennepin County, where they just ensure to assist participants in filing orders for protection and ongoing support with that matter. And we also have advocates on Wednesdays at Bridges to Safety in Ramsey County. We also provide co-advocacy. So if a resident is either living in the community or staying at a different shelter, but is also receiving support from a different organization, we do co-advocacy where we try to meet with the participant and make sure that both organizations are working together to be able to meet the participants' needs.
Now let's talk about reporting. There are numbers we know on a national level as well as a local level on people that are reporting domestic violence. But let's talk about people that aren't reporting and why.
We have learned and heard from our community participants how, and this could be again, participants that are actually are experiencing DV at the time or throughout our different groups and presentations, how maybe they have normalized some of the different forms of violence because their relationship might have been physical with the previous partner or family members. They start normalizing different things. They might start normalizing some forms of abuse. So just because it isn't physical doesn't mean, again, that it isn't abuse. So these numbers have been underreported. Also, again, like mentioned, when we started including boys, we have found out that many of them have been probably keeping quiet for a long time and have been underreporting because they are afraid to disclose that they might be experiencing any form of abuse, and probably haven't even had this conversation about men and young boys can also be experiencing abuse.
I think it's so important that you guys are including men and young boys in this conversation. Like you said, so many suffer in silence. And so the more that we start to talk about it and the more that we start to normalize sharing our emotions, but also our survivors sharing their stories, I think it makes more sense for people to be made more comfortable by actually having that conversation. Now, can you talk to me a little bit? You spoke to this earlier about how immigration status is used as a form of control or a tool of abuse. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it could be fear of deportation. The partner may be withholding the participant's legal documents like passport, birth certificate, identifications from their home countries or here in Minnesota. We have seen where also the partner might, where the participant might not speak the language, and letting them know of the tools available, like language line, when they're making a police report or when they need to attend court hearings, because what we've seen in the community has been where if they call law enforcement, the person that speaks English might give the statement to law enforcement, and just the whole statement does not get across through both parties. So this is where, again, it's really important where we work collaboratively with through our partnerships with law enforcement, making sure they're be able to respond to survivors that might not speak English. Also, for families that might be living out in the suburbs, transportation may be also like a big barrier. They might not know how to drive because in their country maybe they didn't have the need to drive, and here they might not know how to order a taxi or how to navigate like applications to order like a Lyft or an Uber. So we make sure that the participant will have transportation. It could either be the advocate may provide transportation, or we order an Uber or Lyft for them to get to important appointments and hearings. So this is just kind of some of the things.
Thank you for sharing about that, because I think for a lot of us that may not think about how immigration status is used as another form of abuse, especially if you're a natural born citizen. You don't think a coworker or someone around you may be struggling in this way, like you said, with someone withholding documents or keeping them away from mandated reporters like law enforcement or medical treatment, things like that. Now, just switching gears just a little bit here. Esperanza United is the largest Latina organization in the country focused on ending gender-based violence. That is an amazing effort, but I know that this is not something that you all do in a silo. You all have community partners. You've talked a little bit about law enforcement and the Girl Scouts. Can you share a little bit about your other community partners?
Yes, being able to work collaboratively with organizations is definitely a key. As I mentioned before, we do have partnerships with our local parks like Dakota County Parks, the Minnesota National Resources, Girl Scouts, where we invite girls, it's up to 25 girls during the summer, where they have an overnight camp for 2 nights and 3 days, where they do different activities throughout the day. This is a little bit of what the prevention side might look like with partnerships, also with school districts, where we are present at schools for drop-in advocacy hours, facilitating youth groups, using different curriculums to touch on these topics like healthy relationships, healthy masculinity, what is human trafficking, with our like intervention teams, what some of the partnerships is we have again with the Domestic Abuse Center, Bridges to Safety, where we have advocates stationed there to assist with orders for protection and going to court with the participants. We also do work closely with other organizations with pro bono attorneys, so when a participant is in need.
And then lastly, share with us how we can stay connected to the work at Esperanza United. Are you all on social media at all?
Yes, so we do have a Facebook page for Sonido Amigos and the Esperanza page on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on Snapchat. We also have our website, and we do try to keep updates and notifications of any upcoming events or resources that we share with the community. We also have our bilingual crisis line, our 24-hour bilingual crisis line. That's 651-772-1611. So if anyone wants to follow us again to receive any updates, check out these platforms.
If you were speaking to someone who was hesitant to talk to police or to an advocate or something like that, but knew that they needed to seek assistance for domestic violence, what is a word of encouragement that you would share with them?
I don't think there's just a word of encouragement, but I think I would let them know that more than anything, provide them with the information and the resources available, and that we are here when they're ready to move forward. Sometimes they just might be interested in knowing what the resources available, but might be afraid to move forward. This can be because of different factors. It could be, again, with their status or the language or transportation. Sometimes the partner is the provider, financial provider, so they might not have a job. So again, just letting them know that we are here, and whenever they're ready, we have our crisis line available, and continue again to listen and to to them and talk about what the different forms of abuse might look like, and not being judgmental and not making statements or questions like, why don't you leave? And also for the community members out there that they might need to support a peer out there, letting them understanding that the realities are different, that every Latino realities are different, that different to yours, and that there could be just different factors or many reasons why the survivor is just not ready to leave and cannot leave their partner. So again, it's just really important to provide them with informative resources and allowing them to take the lead when they are ready to move forward. And also, again, doesn't need to be physical. There are different forms of abuse. So we do, like mentioned, we have our crisis line, 24-hour bilingual crisis line, where they don't need to share their information if they're just calling for resources or information, but that we're here.
Estefany, thank you so much for the work that you are doing at Esperanza United and for joining me on this episode of Community Connections. Please keep up all the great work, and thank you for sharing the resources that you had available with us today.
Thank you, Anna, for the invitation.
Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for this episode of Community Connections. As always, I am your host, Anna Orr, and I look forward to connecting again with you soon.
Hawaasni addunyaa tokko haala gaariidhaan guddatee jireenya gaarii jiraachuudhaaf waan tokkotti haajama. Fayyaa hawaasaati. COVID-19 baroota dabran kana keessa lubbuu nagaa miliyoonatti lakkaa'amtu dhabamsiisee hawaasa addunyaa diinagdee burkuteessee jira. Lubbuu miliyoona 7tti dhiyaattu dachiirraa godaansisee lubbuu miliyoona 700tti dhiyaattu immoo dhukkubsee dawaa fudhachiisaa jira. Qabeenyi sababa COVID-19tiin dhabame ni argama. Hojiin sababa COVID-19tiin dhabames ni deebi'a. Daldalli cufames ni banama. Daandiiwwan cufaman hundis ni banamu. Manneen jireenyaa, manneen amantaa, manneen nyaataatis deebi'anii banamu. Wanti yeroo tokko yoo bade deebi'ee hin banamne garuu lubbuu tantee qaaliidha. Kanaafuu of eeggannoowwan COVID-19 barbaachisan hunda godhuudhaan lubbuu tantee qaalii kan maatii keetii, kan firoottan keetii, hiriyoottan keetii fi ollaa kan keetii eeguu hin dagatin.